What is up, guys? It's that time again, time for a little bit of ABK news, and at this point, it appears it's business as usual with the deal, with everybody deciding to twist the facts and truths and fabricate things just to get some kind of ground in this deal, whether it's Microsoft, PlayStation, and in this case, the CMA. They have all decided to try to do whatever it is in their means to get this deal to go the direction they want it to. A few months ago, obviously, the CMA came out and said that they weren't concerned about lessening of competition when it comes to the console market, but they were extremely concerned with cloud. And they have taken that a step further by basically saying that Activision would have at some point put their games on one of the cloud services. So by Microsoft owning Activision, they will direct the future of the cloud product into Microsoft's favor by having the Activision library of games on their cloud service. But Activision lawyers have come out and said that Activision actually had no intention whatsoever to put their games on any cloud subscription service because they were just fine with selling the games outright and not having to deal with a subscription service. So at this point, they feel that there would have been no lessening of competition with cloud services, and the whole cloud argument goes out the window because Activision was not going to ever put their games on a cloud subscription service. And in the lawyer's words, it would decide to become an invalid procedural unfairness and misinterpretation of the evidence if the CMA tries to say Activision was going to put their games on a cloud subscription service. But the lies from the CMA just don't end there. Just a few weeks ago, the CMA, those in charge of the CMA, sat down with members of the UK Parliament and got asked a few questions about blocking the Activision Microsoft deal. And in some of this questioning, a member of Parliament asked the CMA to clarify their position on how much of a conversation was held between the CMA and the FTC. And for whatever reason, the woman in charge of the CMA decided to beat around the bush, give a very lengthy, cryptic answer that actually answered nothing. And when the member of Parliament asked her to just be straightforward and give him a yes or no answer, she chose to go the route of, can we please talk about this off camera? And he decided to agree with that. Now, just before the head lady of the CMA decided to ask to have the whole discussion off camera, she did state to the member of Parliament that the CMA had little to absolutely no big conversation with the FTC because there was no waiver in place to have these discussions. But now it appears that's a little bit of a twisting of the truth, and if not, maybe an outright lie. So it appears from a letter of the CMA's CEO dated on May 26, but for some reason it was discovered only just recently on the Parliament website. It appears that Microsoft and/or Activision withdrew certain waivers that allowed the UK Competition and Markets Authority to share information more freely with the US Trade Commission, leading to a restriction in the exchange of information. And just how much of the exchange was taking place? Well, according again to the leader of the CMA in her statement to Parliament, it was little to absolutely no big deal. But now in her letter, it is revealed that the CMA had approximately 26 meetings and exchanged around 74 emails with the FTC during the investigation, indicating a close coordination between the agencies. That doesn't seem like a small conversation at all. And for those that think that I'm just using the word lie as an arbitrary means to get attention, down in the link in the description of this video, you will find a tweet by a member of the community known as Post Up, where he actually clipped the part of the Parliament meeting, the video, and take a look at her words. I mean, she acted like they pretty much like waved at each other across the parking lot, and that was the conversation. But that appears that that was not the case. There was actually a lot of exchanges that have taken place. And I'm very curious now what this is going to look like when it comes to the appeals process, which is even more interesting because at this point, the CMA has come out and tried to challenge how the cat judge is asking for this to take place faster than the CMA wants. And the CMA even tried to come out and say, well, we were prepared. And one of the Activision lawyers came out and laughingly told the judge, how are they not prepared? They knew every ounce of the way that the minute they block this deal, that not only were Microsoft going to appeal the block, but that Activision was going to actively join Microsoft in appealing the block. So where in their delusional thinking did the CMA not believe that the whole block would not be appealed? And funny enough, the judge agreed with that, and they are told, like, the CMA's pleas to kind of hold up the appeals process are pretty much falling on deaf ears. It's quite hilarious to watch. But again, going back to the CMA and the FTC, does this almost count as collusion? We don't exactly get to call it collusion right away. We do got to wait for the proceedings in the United States with the FTC to start taking place. And the proceedings over here in the United States could reveal the content of the emails and maybe shed a little bit of light on the discussions. And where we could possibly have a situation of collusion, or there is some trying to say that the close coordination between the CMA and the FTC is what they call form shopping. Form shopping refers to the practice of selecting a specific jurisdiction or regulatory body in order to gain a favorable outcome for a legal case or a regulatory matter. It involves strategically choosing a forum or venue that is perceived to be more sympathetic or advantageous to one's interests. And where that goes to in place is the FTC actually is not allowed to make some of the arbitrary things that the CMA has said. Like, the one thing the CMA said was Activision games are coming to a cloud service, and Activision totally denounced that. Apparently the CMA is allowed to govern, regulate, and make predictions with whatever crystal ball they have access to, and the CMA is allowed to make these wild claims, where the FTC has to govern themselves based on facts, actual cold hard facts that can stand up in a court of law. They're not allowed to just make arbitrary statements. So that is where the FTC also has potentially lied to members of Congress here. And because I remember the Lena Khan telling members of Congress that they were not colluding with the CMA or trying to somehow influence foreign regulators to bend to the will of the FTC. So because the FTC can't block some of these deals, so they were just going to somehow persuade other world regulators that had looser restrictions on rules to be able to block the deal for them, which is essentially form shopping. At this point, the whole ABK deal has turned into an absolute asinine clown circus, because we have people that are just making arbitrary statements, somehow fabricating ideals and twisting facts and truths. It has completely gotten out of control at this point, when I really thought that this was going to be at least a cut and dry process when it came to an acquisition, and that we were going to see people conduct themselves professionally. And that has been completely further from the truth at this point. And I'm really curious on how this is going to unfold, and how this is possibly going to give Microsoft some serious leverage in proving that not only did the CMA conduct themselves inappropriately and unprofessionally, but also had some procedural errors, and also possibly acting irrationally. And this could all kind of help prove to the cat judge that the CMA made an absolute bad call when it came to blocking the ABK deal. Well, everybody, that does it for this video on getting more info on the ABK deal. As every time info becomes available, I'm right here on this channel presenting it to you. I appreciate everybody tuning in. For more content like this, please like, subscribe down below, all that fun stuff that YouTube likes to see. As always, please leave me a comment, good or bad. And as always, please check out the end card here on the video. Check out my latest video, explore my channel. And I always have to end off with telling everybody to please always remember, play the games that you love on the platforms that you prefer, no matter what anybody says. I am Centurion 1307, and thank you for watching.